Esthajnalcsillag-Morningstar, Chapter 9. The years flew by, and Morningstar developed into a responsible little girl. She became apt at cleaning and washing. Her cooking skills as much as possible improved for a 9-year-old. 3 weeks before Morningstar's 9th birthday, a baby sister arrived in the middle of the night. The baby was born at home, as was the case in a lot of births still in those years. Morningstar was not allowed to enter the room where her mother was in labor, but she could hear every sound that was coming from the front room of the house. Morningstar was told to wait in the back room where her father's office was. A cot was made up for Morningstar there to spend the night on. Morningstar's paternal grandmother came to stay with the family for the arrival of her new grandchild. She spent most of that night in the office with Morningstar. As the sounds from the front bedroom became more and more disturbing and frightening to Morningstar, her paternal grandmother, instead of soothing and reassuring the little girl, said to the child that it is right and befitting for Morningstar's mother to suffer so much. She deserves to suffer. This statement of the paternal grandmother disturbed Morningstar very much. Morningstar's mother often called out for someone to come and help her, but she was left alone in the bedroom. Morningstar's father and the doctor were busy drinking to the health of the yet unborn child. Our little girl knew that the two women did not get along, but to say such a horrible thing, that a woman deserves to suffer in childbirth, was beyond her young mind's understanding. Then and there, whatever feelings of like or love Morningstar had for her paternal grandmother vanished. It was hard for a little girl to show respect for this kind of a grandmother. Morningstar was not aware of everything that was wrong in her parents' marriage, but she did know that things were not going well. And a lot of the problems were caused by his grandmother's bad opinion of her daughter-in-law. The paternal grandmother took every opportunity to goad her son on about his wife's looks, and that a woman so beautiful was probably not faithful either. Of course, at first there was no truth to these insinuations. Morningstar gathered that something must have happened to convince her father. Sometimes, Morningstar's father would come home from the village, and then a fight would erupt between Morningstar's parents over some gossip that Morningstar's father heard in the village. At times, these fights would end up in physical violence, with Morningstar's father beating his young wife, telling her to admit to the lies or she will get more beatings. The young wife at first was shocked, but after a while, since she knew she would not get help from anyone, and no one would believe the beloved minister, she gave up with all attempts at trying to explain the truth to her husband. Many times, Morningstar's mother would escape from her brutality of her husband by going to visit her mother. Morningstar's father would go after her and bring her back to Siófok, where another beating was in store for Morningstar's mother for daring to leave, and thereby bring shame on her father, making him a laughingstock of the village. Sometimes Morningstar's maternal grandmother was forced to lie and say that her daughter is out, not at her house, just to give a chance for the young woman to calm down and collect her wits. Morningstar's mother was married at an early age of 16. She did not have much experience or knowledge about life, and much less about men. Once Morningstar was not sure when, the paternal grandmother mentioned that her parents got divorced, but then remarried again. 2 mistakes in one lifetime, Morningstar thought to herself. This baby girl that was being born now was to bring the parents of Morningstar together again. The paternal grandmother took a liking to the new little girl because she, according to the grandmother, resembled the paternal side of Morningstar's family, unlike Morningstar, who seemed to resemble the maternal side of her family. After the baby was born, Morningstar was allowed to enter the bedroom of her parents and view her new little sister. Our little girl was happy that the new baby was a girl. By this time, she was very fed up with her older brother's behavior towards her. The little baby was named after her godmother, and the name Lilla was also given to her by Morningstar's father. It was the morning of Pentecost Sunday, and preparations were being made to decorate the church with flowers for this occasion. From these flowers, a few were placed at the bedside of the new mother as a way of saying thank you for this new life. With the birth of Morningstar's little sister, our little girl's life took a turning point also. She was not the little girl of the family anymore, but the big sister of a little baby who needed caring and watching over. Morningstar, at age 9, could hardly be considered a child who no longer needed care. But this was the impression that was given to her as soon as the new baby arrived. Morningstar was given more and more household duties to perform. And of course, her schoolwork was to be done faultlessly along with all her other duties. The attempt at playing the organ with very small improvements continued also. Morningstar by this time was a rather confused little girl. She was afraid of her older brother, who used to beat her regularly when they were left alone at home. Morningstar started to be afraid of her father, who had never hit Morningstar so far, but did regularly use violence as a means of controlling his wife and son. Morningstar was afraid of her teachers, and especially of her principal in school, who would regularly be after the 2 children of the Lutheran minister to give information about their father that may be used against him. There was no one that Morningstar could discuss her fears with, or anyone to console her. Morningstar started to become introverted. She spoke very little, figuring that so no one is interested in what she had to say anyway. When Morningstar told her parents that her brother was beating her as soon as they were left alone, the parents disregarded the statement of the little girl as just some malicious gossip so that she could get her brother into trouble. So Morningstar decided to remain silent. She locked all her pain deep inside her heart. Slowly, she became as unfeeling and as uncaring as the outside world was towards her. Yes, our little girl started to build up the wall around her heart so no one may hurt her any more than she has been hurt already. This wall was not so strong yet, and the little girl had more pain to store away than she could handle. Sometimes, as she sat on the banks of her beloved lake at dusk, she thought how wonderful it would be to just walk out to the middle of the lake and disappear into the soft, gentle waves, never to return to this ugly, hard, cruel world again. These were the first thoughts of Morningside about suicide. Morningstar. She was convinced that no one would care if she died and that probably no one would even notice that she was gone. Her parents now had the perfect little girl that they always wanted, and now all Morningstar was good for was to be a servant in the house. For this purpose, she was tolerated. When family portraits were taken, the photographer could not understand why there was always an angry, sad, and pouting expression on the beautiful little girl's face. Morningstar's only refuge, it seemed, was her maternal grandmother, who loved her and accepted her always. On one warm summer evening, when Morningstar's parents left her alone with her brother again, the little girl decided that she could not take this atmosphere in the house anymore. She took a sweater and, pretending to go to the bathroom, she escaped from the house. Going out the back door, she went to the fence that led to the railroad tracks. There, she climbed over the fence and headed toward her only refuge, the banks of her beloved lake. Morningstar had to hide from everyone's eyes because everyone knew in the town who she was, and soon the police would take her back home. A few of the tourists stopped her along her way, asking what such a little girl is doing on the street so late at night. Morningstar told them that she was attending a movie with her parents and just came out to go to the bathroom. Slowly and carefully, Morningstar made her way to one of the resorts along the beach. The gates were open because the vacationers were coming and going to supper and other nighttime activities. Morningstar snuck in and hid in one of the gazebos whose three sides were closed. There, she hid under the bench, putting her sweater under her to keep off the concrete floor. She was very much afraid, but our little girl also felt a sense of freedom, and the pain and fear in her heart subsided. Morningstar could hear the gentle sound of the waves from the lake, and the music filtered out from the halls of the resort. Slowly, sleep overcame our little girl. Very early in the morning, awakened by the sirens, Morningstar looked out from the gazebo and saw that policemen were all over the place. They were searching for a lost little girl. Morningstar flattened her little body against the wall so no one could see her, and no one presumed that she could sneak into a private resort anyways. Noticing that all the policemen had left, she washed herself in the lake and put her clothes in order. Morningstar decided that she needs money to buy food. She knew that her brother did odd jobs, such as carrying luggage at the railroad station, and that he saved a little bit of this money in the bank. Morningstar went to the bank and told the clerk that her brother had sent her to take money out of his account. With the few forints that were on the account, Morningstar bought herself a roll and some milk. She was very hungry, since she had not eaten for a day already. The little girl figured that she can board the train and go to her grandmother's house, as she had done on many occasions. Or else she can just stay at the beach, and people would feed her there also. Anywhere would be better than to return home. Morningstar thought this to herself. The little girl spent her day on the beach, and no one bothered her. Strangely enough, the policemen that did their usual rounds did not seem to notice that there was a little girl they are searching for right under their noses. When night came, Morningstar went back to the same resort that she spent the first night at. The site turned out to be rather cool, and the little girl sat shivering in her lightweight sweater from the cold and hunger and fear. Again, the thought of walking into her beloved lake crossed her mind. This time, she actually got up and started walking into the warm water. Then Morningstar looked up at the sky and saw the brightest star she had ever seen so far. It was a falling star. For some reason, at the sight of this, Morningstar turned around and went back to the gazebo. Our little girl did not sleep that night. Morningstar knew that she must leave, or else she would be found sooner or later. As soon as it was light enough to see, Morningstar went out to the railroad station to see if she can find a train to sneak on. Her heart nearly stopped when she got near the station. The place was crawling with policemen and dogs in search of the little girl. One of the policemen that had a big dog also had one of Morningstar's shoes and socks with him. The little girl did not know what that meant, but she did have a gut feeling that she must run away from there as fast as her little legs could carry her. Morningstar was not fast enough. The dogs got her scent and were after her with the policeman close behind. Morningstar was never as afraid in her little life as when she saw the jaws of those dogs as they were growling at her. One of the policemen caught Morningstar by her pigtail and dragged her back to the railroad station. He did not like the idea of having to chase wayward little girls around on a hot summer morning. Morningstar was asked why she did such an unthinkable thing as to run away from home. Good little communist girls do not do such things. Not only did she bring shame on her family, but also on party discipline. Morningstar said nothing. Another older policeman, who was also a parishioner in Morningstar's father's church, came to the rescue of the frightened little girl and tried to speak with her. But Morningstar remained silent. Then this man reassured her that now Morningstar will be taken home and that nothing bad will happen, that her parents are eagerly waiting for their little girl. Morningstar was not at all convinced by these statements from the policeman, but she was in a helpless situation, so she went along obediently. The policeman escorted Morningstar home and triumphantly turned her over to her parents, who, to express their gratitude, offered them all drinks, desserts, and coffee. After everyone left, Morningstar was left alone to face the wrath of her father. First, the father accused the mother of Morningstar, saying that this was from her, that the child got such ideas as to run away from home. And there, Morningstar got 2 slaps from her father to welcome her home with. Morningstar did not feel sorry for what she did. She thought to herself that her little baby sister should have been taken from the home along with her to protect the baby from this two-faced, bigoted environment. End of chapter 9.